Yes, Lydia. Stand on that box, please. Point it at me. Very good. Thank you. I am Galhard, making this record again at the suggestion of my comrade, who says that I should make a record of these things. This is my record. If you'll excuse me, I'm sitting on a gang member at this time. We have yet to interrogate him, so I may be a little... Yes. And we are sitting outside of a tavern, so it might get noisy, just so you know. But I was summoned to Waterdeep with a letter from Bryn Luthier, of the Grand Order. So I arrived early. I wanted to see this great city of Waterdeep. It did not disappoint. But it was an amazingly friendly city. Everyone there seemed fairly... Well, I was not turned out at pitchforks, so that's good. Even though the fact there are few goliaths in this area, I was not ill-treated. People seemed to respect me, which was good. I immediately looked for the yawning portal where I was supposed to meet with Master Durnan. Well, this I did. And without much difficulty, I found him and showed him the letter, and he put me up until the time of the meeting. It seemed that the benefactor had a limitless purse string, though I did not tempt it. I went out and explored the city for a week and a half. I learned many things. It was very interesting. I bought a shield. It's a good shield. But eventually the meeting. I had been staying in the inn for some time, and I was the first one in the room for the gathering, when the others started to drift in. They looked like an unlikely a group as you can find. Not one of us share the same blood. I suppose it would do best to describe my new traveling companions. Thank you, Lydia. It would seem that we might be traveling together for some time. Firstly, of course, we have Lydia. She is a spunky halfling lass, a soldier, and she's a devastating warrior. All the fact that she comes up to my knee. We have Art, who is himself a tiefling of the, I believe, heard it described as a warlock, which I have heard is bad luck, but he seems to be a friendly enough chap, so yes. We have Kytheon, the human, a priest of the Triad, gods who I respect. Helm, Torm, and Tyr, gods of justice and protection and courage. So I have no issue with him, and if he can heal me of wounds that I take in the field, then he and I will be fast friends, I am sure of it. Of course, then we also have Tradovic. Where's Tradovic? Cleaning off his rapier. He's an elf. He just introduced himself as an archaeologist, someone who goes looking for relics of the past. He has assured me that he is not a tomb robber. This is good. I don't have much truck with tomb robbers. We also have Glint. He is a hammer enthusiast. Matter of fact, that seems to be all that he talks about. He's on a quest for a hammer. He has a large collection of hammers that he carries with him when he fights. Hammers. It's not very deep, but it'll be interesting fighting alongside of him. Then, alright, Lydia, yeah, that's everybody. We were at the meeting, and Bryn arrived, and she told us her story. Her father founded or was the master of the Grand Order, and was driven to madness, a mage who may have tangled in things that sane men would not. But he went mad and died. Before he did, he left behind a prophecy, not much more than just some names, and they promised that those folk are the key. But my name was one of them, as are the rest of those I now travel with, so make of that what you will, I suppose. The workings of Timora are mysterious, truly. And she told us the tale of how the company all but dissolved when she was denoted to be the leader of the Grand Order after her father passed, which most of the company did not think she was suited for. The second-in-command Urian was seen as the logical choice, and most of the adventurers left once she took control, including this Durian, who founded his own new company. So, she has no adventurers to quest and do the work for the guild. She recruited us, made us a very good offer, and we are now members of her adventuring house. We don't have to pay any kind of admission. She has waived our fees, which is more than fair. And we have the backing of one of the more well-reputed adventuring company houses in the Sword Coast area. So there is that. It's somewhat bewildering, but in the span of just a few days, I suddenly find myself a member of a fairly prestigious group. So, after we agreed, basically, to work alongside of her, or at least I did. I did not believe there was any point in thinking about it. Timora had steered me to this point. Her client arrived. Gudrun Rockseeker. He is a dwarf who is interested in a find that he had in the town of Phandeline. It is a small farming village, but apparently he discovered a lost mine in ruins or some sort of diggings in the hills. This town had been devastated in the eruption of Mount Hotenau, and as a result, it is, much troubled. But he and his brothers had a claim, and he wanted some protection, as they are not skilled in combat. So these dwarven brothers effectively hired us. At the same time, there was a shipment consigned to go to Phandeline by the Lion Shield Coster. We were advised to take that job, which would take us up to Phandeline, and then we could continue working with Gudrun. And we did so. We found out that it is a good thing to be a member of this Grand Order. The Lion Shield Coster entrusted us immediately with the shipment, and we basically had sole charge of it. We could have gone off and sold it on our own had we had no honor, but of course we did. There were many things along the way. It's almost a blur. We have these interesting... Where's mine? It's starting to wiggle. Looks like they're turning out the troughs. We have these little markers that can find each other, which is interesting. They can also be set to find and communicate with the Grandmaster of the Order, which would be Bryn. I'm assured it's relatively painless magic. And we, well, set off, really. There's not much more to say than that. I mean, we did get to spend the night in one of the keeps of the Grand Order, which was comfortable enough, I suppose. The floors are nice and sturdy. Probably a little bit too luxurious for one like me. The others seemed to be satisfied, and the food was very good. Plenty of it. So, we took charge of the shipment and traveled up to Phandalin. There was no real difficulties, and quite honestly, only a fool would have attacked us. I mean, I am not subtle. I don't hide or skulk. Quite honestly, Glint, well, looks like a steely veteran of sorts. A little young for a dwarf, but then again, I'm not a grizzled veteran myself. And the others around look suitably mysterious, and perhaps the least notable one of our order, Lydia, for those who think stature is the same as deadliness, she proved herself quite adept. So, really, until we got to the first turning off from the main trade road, heading north, I believe, to Neverwinter, at the intersection, practically, we saw a destroyed cart and a few dead draft horses. The site was apparently an ambush and massacre. When we went to investigate, we ourselves were attacked by a group of goblins. It did not go well for them. However, I was shown firsthand that sometimes Tymora is a fickle goddess. Despite the diminutive size of our enemies, I was the only one who received a blow. Although a scratch only, it stung my pride more than anything. And while the others all got to demonstrate some amount of their combat skills, blasting away or summoning a creature to frighten or some such, and the image of what happened to the goblin after Glint's hammer smote him, pretty graphic, really. The axe that I hurled hit the dirt only. I have no doubt that Tymora thought I needed a little bit of humbling, which I accept. And one goblin escaped, so that is on me. We examined the wagon. After the goblins left, they had but a pittance upon them. The wagon appeared to be similar, if not the same. Assuredly it was the same as the one that our employer Gundren had taken himself. Why he did not stay and wait for us, he seems to be a bit hasty for a dwarf. Since we did not see any bodies of his staff or himself anywhere around, and goblins are not clever enough to bury their victims, we have hopes that he's still alive. We found evidence that there was a large body of goblins that had taken apparently the cargo of the wagon, and perhaps some others along through the forest around. So, we're going to have to set out to that forest and find them at some point. But we were pledged to deliver the shipment. We gave our bond, so we were not able to deviate and attempt to rescue Gundren just yet. We continued along, even pushing on into the dark when we arrived at Phandalin. The town itself was in a state of disrepair. It's quite clear that this place had been abandoned. For those that had survived the eruption, came as a blight upon the entirety of the town. Crops destroyed, people's livelihoods just devastated. So many of the population of the town left as refugees. We arrived at the Coster, one of the few places that still appeared open besides the taverns, and we were greeted warmly and respectfully. We delivered our charge, earned our pay, and asked for word of the town. Master Gundren had not arrived, so yes, it appears that he was the one who had been sacked on the wagon. And we were given a bit of advice. The tavern in the town where I am now, currently sitting on this... What's your name? Oh, you're still unconscious. Oh well. We are on this tavern, the Sleeping Giant. And, well, we were told that this place was trouble because it is considered the territory of a gang known as the Red Brands. We decided that we were not going to let these marauders rule over these common folk. We found out a good deal of information when we went to the Shrine of Timora. When we arrived there, Mother Grail, the tender, turned out to be a familiar face. Rosaria, the elven cleric of Timora that I knew on my travel to Waterdeep for the month that I had spent, turned out to be Mother Grail. And in fact, she was actually also sheltering Leosin, my bardic friend. So the Hoppers had a presence in this town and were investigating as well, although they were not prepared to move against the Red Brand. Perhaps in our... We may have been a little bit hasty on this if, they are somewhat more experienced than we are, but we were still determined to do some good before we set off in the morning to go and attempt to rescue Master Gudrun. So we thought we would strike out against the group, test them, and see exactly what they were up to. Plus, Rosaria told us that this group had disappeared and suspected to have murdered the blacksmith of the town and had captured and kidnapped a noble named Yarrow, and were holding him for ransom. This fired the blood of our cleric, who himself I suspect is of noble blood. So, while we decided what we would do, we thought that we would challenge the Red Brand on their territory while they were all drinking at night and find out how things stood. And then in the morning, after we have some rest, then we'll go and settle things with the goblins. So we go to the tavern, and I thought it would be a good thing to not allow any single members to go in by themselves. Art was keenly insistent on going in and scouting, which, commendable, but unfortunately tieflings tend to draw trouble, if not mobs. And the small farming village that had seen, difficulty and devastation, I thought it would be bad for tempers. I advised another of our members to go in with them, thinking perhaps to counter the possibly inflammatory nature of our friend, Art. I recommended that Tradovic go in with him, as he seemed like he might have some useful skills in negotiating with people as a relic hunter. Well, that turned out to be a mistake. They went up to the tavern, but there were 4 toughs who were standing outside. Really not much more than boys playing at warriors, but there you have it. And they challenged them as soon as they came in, claiming that the tavern was their territory. I am unfamiliar with taunts and insults, but when Tradovic looked up and said, "Oh yes, I see the sign there, this is the Douchebag Inn," that apparently started a fight. The toughs drew their swords, and Tradovic produced his rapier, and the fight started. I had said earlier that we needed to take one of these individuals prisoner to find out more information. Yeah. It's strange. Since I've come here, there's this panther that keeps following me around. She has a tag on her collar that says Guinevere, spelt oddly. She seems to like me, though. But, yes, go on to your perch. But, fight commenced, and while the others defending Tradovic dealt with 3 of the toughs, I, inspired by I lost my temper. I charged one of them, speared through him with a good solid body tackle, but it's like fighting a child. He is but a whelp, and his feeble attempts to break free only enraged me more. I'm afraid he's in a bit of discomfort right now, as I've been sitting on him this entire time, but I think he should be ready to tell us something when I get off of him. That's the situation we are in now. We are going to fight these red brands and figure out what power they claim to have, and break it if we need to bring some relief to these people. We will then, commending our employer Gundren to the mercies of Lady Tamora, hope to find him well and, alive when we go to deal with those goblins tomorrow. That is my plan. That is our plan, and you are a mouthy panther. And we will make another report when I have more to say. This is Galhard, and I'm signing off from the Sleeping Giant Tavern in Vandaline. Farewell. Okay, hit that right there, Lydia, please. Thank you.